In this lesson, I'd like to go back and re-envision a painting that we've already done. I've said from the very beginning of this course that watercolor is unpredictable and we'll have to make a lot of mistakes before we get to a place where we feel really great about our paintings. You know, there's this thought in watercolor in particular that we have to be perfect and every stroke is like our last stroke. It has to be just left transparent and pure. The problem is it's completely unrealistic. It's not how things are in real life. And in reality, watercolor is hard and it takes a lot of practice. And in order to get to that free flow, we have to go through a lot of different trial and error periods. So today, let's take a painting that we've already worked on. I'm not saying that you have to change your painting, but watch as I take a look at mine and think of ways that I might make it better. There are some things about this painting that I wasn't too crazy about. So let's go back and see if there's some little ways that I can tweak it, nudge it one direction or another, and make it better. So I have stepped away from this painting for a few days and can go back and take a look at it with fresh eyes. And I think I would like to re-envision this painting. Now, I'm not suggesting you do this with all of your paintings, but I partly want you to know that a mistake is not the end of the world with watercolor. And so I'm thinking of this painting, and what I notice is that it sort of bores me. It feels very flat. It feels like there's not that much contrast. I've got contrast between the white of the moon and the dark of these trees, but otherwise, all this green looks real similar. And I think I'm going to be able to make that a little more punchy if I have my viewer's eye come in and be drawn to this dark tree, but to not have all this competing dark pigment behind it. This was pretty much just plain white paper behind this mountain, and I'm going to just soften all of this with clean water right now. Gently with my 1-inch flat, I'm just going back over this and just gently putting some water on it and letting the water dissolve that pigment. This is going to soften it, and it's going to take out some of the value. It's going to make the value go from pretty dark to quite light. And I'm going to even go over these trees gently. I'm just sort of massaging it off, kind of. I'm letting the bristles just kind of dance on the surface of the paper, and I'm going into the sky, over the mountain, and this needs to get soaked up with my paper towel. So I'm just going to blot that up. I'm taking up quite a bit of pigment. You can see on my paper towel that I've taken quite a bit of pigment off of the painting. I wanted this area lighter so that now my contrasts are going to be a little more directional. I'm going to have a chance to kind of play around with the patterning of the lights and darks in this overall painting. I think that will give me a chance to make something a little more interesting visually, a little more exciting for me, and hopefully for my viewer as well. While that kind of dries, blot up quite a bit of that pigment. See how much green I'm taking out of there? Now I've got a nice strong diagonal across here, and when I put some darks over here, it's going to really punch it out. Okay, my vision for this is to have a light area, maybe what that moon is illuminating is going to be lighter, and I want that to stay that way. So that to me is where I had that mix of titanium white with medium yellow, or maybe a little bit of yellow ochre. That's going to stay that way. I'll see what happens if I touch a little bit into it. Yeah, even lighter. I could even get a little lighter down there with some of that yellow ochre, and I'm using a big old brush on this thing. And I'm just going to use it almost like a glaze. I'm just dancing that over those parts where I want to kind of punch out that light area. Going to get a little more medium yellow into it. Let that kind of bleed and blend with what's already there. So I'm actually going to glaze over that. I think I'm going to mostly use a blue mix, a little bit of sepia in it. I can use a little bit of indigo, and I'm going to darken this, especially over in this corner. I don't want it to be so much that I make this path looks too weird, but I'm going to mix that in, let that bleed into that green background that's already there. So this is going to give it a little more of a shadowy, mysterious feel, right? And this area could be pretty dark. I could put a little wedge like we've talked about. I'm going to put a wedge shape in here that will kind of direct my viewer's eye to where I want it to go, which is down that pathway. How about if we put a wedge over on this side as well? Okay, now you really have to mist this to kind of help bleed it together. I'm increasing the drama of my overall idea here. Top edge, I'm going to rough up a bit and then mist it again. I'm going to have to readdress some of those grasses after this dries a bit more. Okay, how are we doing over here? We need this to dry. So let's take a moment and get this thing a little bit drier. First of all, I can see how I need to integrate this a little bit better right in there. And maybe throw a little bit more of that really dark stuff down in this lower corner. I'd actually like this mountain to fade out of the scene a little bit even more. It's such a strong diagonal shape going up that way, such a strong top. It's not very atmospheric. It's kind of like a cardboard cutout in the back of a stage, and that makes it look too fake. I want to make it more mysterious. I want to make it more atmospheric. So I'm going to try to massage a little bit more of that pigment out, especially up in those higher regions of that mountain. I want that to be a little foggy. It just feels a little bit too strong. Nice clean water. Gonna leave it. That's more what I'm thinking about. It's more foggy, more mysterious, more misty. Okay, now let's get this dry and let's see what we can do with it. Okay, now with these trees, I'm going to still add a little bit of atmospheric stuff here, but I need to have some contrast with the darker trees that are coming in from the right side and the darker trees that are over here on this left side. So I'm going to kind of create some more mist. I'm thinking of kind of some sort of like V-shaped lifting that I'm doing. I'm lifting a V that's going down into those trees. What it's left then, the positive shape that's left is more like the top of a tree. And so I'm thinking of a V shape that's going downward, but what you also will notice is sort of a tree shape going upward. And I don't want those to be too fake. While this paper's wet, I'm going to throw a little bit of darker tree pigment in here and let that paint bleed a little bit so that it looks mysteriously atmospheric. Our sweet spot is where our trail is going to go off into the distance. That's where I want most of the light to be. I want it to be super dark in the backdrop of that though. So let's see if we can redo this a little bit. I'm going to leave that light green right by the trail, but I'm going to leave it in such a shape that it looks like some foliage, like some vegetation. See if I can just create sort of a bush kind of by doing some negative painting behind it. And then this will just continue on up into that forest. So I need to get some water on here and just let that go up. Just encourage it with some clean water to go up there. That looks fine to me. I'm going to flood a little bit more of that yellow ochre and titanium white into that spot to just help that read a little bit better. It's so wet above it now that it'll bleed up into that a little bit, and that's fine. That's what I want. The dark trees I want to really have highlighted by some lighter area behind it. So in that case, I need this dark tree needs to be over, kind of to have its silhouette showed off by this lighter spot here. And that's what I'm thinking about, is having places where there's more contrast. A dark tree gets to show off against a lighter background. Let's load this one up with, let's see, we'll have Prussian blue and sepia, our old standby, with a little bit of sap green mixed in there. And I'm just going to make this tree, actually I'll add a second friend for that tree that goes up here. This one maybe can be a little stronger as well up high. Darken that trunk a little bit. Now this one, it's going to come all the way down there. I'm going to give it some branches and needles up at the top. And then as we go down, branches are reaching, they're heading for the light. And the darkness of this pigment can get punched out really dark at the bottom. So plenty of sepia, throw in a little indigo. That makes a super nice rich dark down in here. I'm going to kind of be spotty with it so that it'll indicate that there might be some places where the vegetation in the foreground is reaching right up into that dark area. That contrast is what I'm talking about. That's what's going to make this painting more exciting to me. I think we might be in pretty decent shape on that side. Let's go over to this side. These are going to be the most dramatic because I've left that misty part of the mountain behind it now. That's what was concerning me. I think I'm going to go ahead and not have this tree leaning as much over towards the moon, but rather go ahead and make it pretty straight. Go ahead and put some needlework up at the top. These are going to really show off here. This has got its full drama. The stage is set. It's got the spotlight on it because that background has been lightened up so much. There we go. I'm already feeling a little bit more balanced here, like this is really going to work better. I can make that trunk kind of change its course a little bit. And I need some friends to go with this. This tree's too much by itself. I think I'm going to have a snag go right here. Just has a few branches on it, and I've done it lighter. You'll notice it's just kind of a friendly little element to add to the design here. Now a larger tree. Spacing is kind of crucial on this point. I've got one pretty thick tree there. I've got this snag that's going to start right up here, touch a little bit more pigment into it. Now I've got those two that are maybe 1/2 inch apart. I've got to have this one be a little different spacing. So I'm going to have it closer maybe to this snag, like right about here. And this one could even come down closer in our foreground. These trees here are kind of those sentinel sorts of big, strong pines that we sometimes have out in our mountain meadows in Colorado. Okay, more sepia, more indigo, and I'm just going to hit this tree with some needles and branches. There'll be some spots where these trees overlap. That's fine. And now I have this challenge of somehow having this forest sort of just fade out. I want to give you a suggestion of forest that continues, but I'm not going to paint much of it. So I might have some really light stuff that just gives the impression that there's forest back over here. This is all very atmospheric over there, including down in this meadow. We have to stand back and look and see if this works, because I'm not sure that if that's going to work or not. Just have to touch this a little bit. This isn't quite working. I'm taking a little bit of my lemon yellow, dancing that in there and letting that bleed in with that yellow ochre that I put in there previously. Okay, I think last but not least, I'll grab my fan brush and we'll darken in some of those grasses now that we have thrown this shadow into this whole foreground area. And coming out of the shadows, there'll be some of these grasses. And sometimes, since I'm just playing with this painting, I've already decided I'm going to go ahead and change it. I'm going to just launch a little bit of turquoise magic into this little spot right in here, which is where your eye is going to be drawn, hopefully. That would be over in this area is reflected as well. I feel like this tree just needs to jump out over that a little bit darker, and we're going to call it good. I'm going to go back to my darkest mix, Prussian and sepia and indigo, and just bring branch down into that spot. I think it's time that we stop on this painting. There really is a point of overkill. I debated a bit about even including this in our lessons because it totally breaks all the rules that I've got in the back of my head from Watercolor 101, that you should never do some of the things that I just did. But I hope that it's worth it because it might give you permission. The creative process is tough, and it doesn't really work if we feel completely uptight and like that there's certain things we have to be really careful about. So instead of that, I think it's more helpful to actually say, well, it's just a piece of paper. I'm just going to mess around. The reason that I would go back and change this painting is not so that this one piece of paper is better out in the world. No, I need to do more pieces of paper. But by adjusting this painting and manipulating the pigment in different ways, I'm teaching myself something about what I want to do on my next painting. Why is that mountain better if it's softer and a little bit lighter value? Why is it better if I have the trees darker over on this area? Those kind of things that I'm teaching myself is what's going to make my next painting sparkle even more. So this completes our lessons about further experiments in watercolor. I hope I've given you permission to break some of the rules and to keep experimenting. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for our final lesson about living a watercolor lifestyle. Hi, I'm Bob. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you'll go by my website at watercolorwithbob.com. That's where you'll find an interactive outline of the whole course. You can also share your work with me and your fellow students. One thing I really love about watercolor is how accessible it is. That's why I realized it was important to me to put this course out for free. That said, it would mean the world to me if you would support this work. You can like it, you could share it with your friends, you could subscribe to the channel, you could also visit the gift shop or even make a donation. Thanks so much. See you on the next lesson, and happy painting. I feel like I've been working on this painting for a long time.